today on CityCast Madison. It's Thursday, so of course we're dishing on Madison's food scene. So 2025, out with the old, in with the new? That's certainly a true story for a number of Madtown restaurants and cafes. The city has an exciting slate of new spots to eat and drink, with just as many spots on the way, and several who are calling it quits. To get an update of what's new in the scene, we sat down with our friend, Captime's food and culture editor, Lindsay Christians. It's Thursday, January 23rd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show, our food queen.
I love it. This is always so fun.
It's always so fun, and I'm always shocked. I don't know why, but how many new restaurant updates that you have for us. It's just I feel like we had one of these conversations not too long ago, and it's already time to talk about new restaurants and new faces in the Madison restaurant scene. It seems like the year's already off to a busy start when it comes to new spots opening up. How many are opening?
I think it is not a super usual thing for restaurants to plan to open in the middle of winter, but they do because they plan to open in the fall and then things go slow, right?
Yeah.
So you have places that are that will totally be telling you in midsummer or even spring that they're going to open by the fall, and that means usually January,
Yes, everything is cold, which means it slows down the ice and the snow. It's slower motion.
Yeah, I think a lot of places close around this time of year because it is a slow time of year, right? But also, you look at the end of the year, I think we all think of it as okay, what are the choices that I'm making for this new year? It's a time of reset. It's a time of where maybe you're actually, I think I want to do something different. I want to go in a different direction, or I've been holding this afloat for this long and it's time now to call it. So you'll see some restaurant turnover always this time of year. We do tend to see kind of more closures because it's, again, slow time and things can get rough at the end of the year.
Yeah. So we'll definitely have to talk about that too. I know a few of them and it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, there's ups and downs in this convo for sure. But let's dig into some of the new places, shall we? Who are you particularly excited about?
Oh, a couple of them. I'm really excited about Molten Monkey.
Oh, Molten Monkey. That's not a real song.
They're doing Detroit-style pizza, and it's really, I like the toppings that they're doing, but I feel also because Detroit style is that pillowy dough, it's a kind of a thicker dough, but it's pretty light still. It's not a dense dough, but then it's fried crispy kind of around the sides, which I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, it's going into a space that years ago was Sal's Pizza, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is a magical place. I hold the magical sense of that spot right next to Johnson Public House on East Johnson. But yeah, now Detroit Pizza, which we've got some Detroiters in Madison for sure. I hear them sometimes at the game. It'll be Lions fans around.
Yeah. And the owner, Otto Dilba, used to be over at Ale Asylum. And if you look at the way, even just on the website or the names of the pizzas, it's oh yeah, this guy totally did beer labels, right? Because they're funny and they're really bold colors and they're, they have little puns in them. And you're yeah, okay, this all makes sense.
Yay, more style to the East Johnson. That neighborhood is so cute, stylish.
Yeah.
So Molten Monkey, that's really exciting. Detroit style pizza. What else?
So this is a personal thing because it's near where I live, but I'm excited that there's an Ancora Coffee that's open on Monona.
Yeah.
So I'm delighted that there's one over close to me because I like their coffee and I like their biscuit sandwiches.
I'm excited about that Ancora as well, and I've been to it, and there's a drive-through. Hot tip, be really careful because you might miss it 3 times like I did. Not really 3 times, but I missed it twice. It's because of the intersection that it's on Monona Drive, you have to slow down and be careful and get in the right way. So just be mindful. And also the burrito, it was ready by the time I got to the second window. What is this? Taco Bell? But it's a nice burrito, classy.
They have a shorter menu for the drive-thru than they do for the full cafe. So if you go inside, you can get a larger menu. But I think it's really smart to have a tight menu for the drive-thru because that's quick.
Yes, it's really quick. I don't always want to get out of my car in the morning if I'm going from one place to another. So,
Especially if it's
yeah.
cold. So there's another place that I have not been to yet, but I'm excited about, and it's called Nano Sweet Cafe. It's over on Mineral Point Road. And they have like Lebanese, Middle Eastern style desserts. So there's like semolina cake and rice pudding and like these like sweet cheese rolls. They also have crepes, they've got smoothies, they've got coffee. But it just looks like a really cool kind of place, to try some of those kinds of sweets that are harder to find around the rest of the city.
That take a little bit of a delicate touch.
Yeah.
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 I love crepes too, by the way. So all the crepe places, please.
Yeah. I love to go and get, something like a little bit sweet and then some tea. Like I love it. I love a tea.
Especially again, or we just gonna keep repeating when it's cold out.
Right?
Feeling
Yes.
cozy, yeah, and getting our treats. We know we like to get our treats.
Yeah.
So those are some really exciting spots. How about just kind of bigger names in your mind that are new openings?
Oh, sure. So I interviewed the guy who's opening the firing. It's like you want to turn the R a little bit, like firing or something. It's
Oh,
Norwegian.
okay.
It's not a Norwegian restaurant. It's going to be like a new American restaurant. And he's kind of having this slow opening. He just started serving appetizers, but he was open for drinks in December. It's right down from the Stoughton Opera House. But the chef and owner, Ryan, he used to be a science teacher. And he said his
Love
students
that.
would be like, what? Like, if you weren't a teacher, he's like, what would you want to do? And he's like, well, I've only ever wanted to teach. You guys are the best. And they're like, no, but really? What do you really want to do? And he wanted to go back to cooking. So this is his spot. It had been like I think like a pub and kind of a casual restaurant for a really long time. And it had been many things over the years. So when they were sort of excavating, which happens a lot with sort of restaurant turnovers, they'll find things like old newspaper clippings in the walls and like an old Babe Ruth card and just
That's really charming. And also LOL at the students like calling him out. They're like, we like you, but like maybe you want to be somewhere else. Maybe that's that was
it was
But
cute.
yeah, that sounds fun. And also like make it a trip, go to Stoughton Opera House.
Yeah. There's some cool new stuff on State Street, which again, haven't been to all these places yet, but there's a new sort of Korean barbecue style spot. I was going to write about it last summer and they closed for a while. I think they had some issues with like construction or something going on in the building, and then they reopened. So I put them on my most recent roundup just because we hadn't been able to mention them before. But it's like the kind of Korean barbecue spot where you cook your meat right on the table in front of you. Like there's like stuff built into the,
Yes.
yeah. So that's really
Proper.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Apex Grill.
That's Apex Grill.
Okay,
And
cool. And also barbecue. Oh,
yeah,
Korean barbecue is so good.
it is so good. I love bulgogi everything. And then across from there, like right on the same block, is this new izakaya where Dubai used to be on State Street.
Okay.
And it's called Izakaya Kuriyama. And it's like little bites. Like the izakaya idea was one that like Shinji Morimoto tried to bring to Madison many years ago, and it wasn't successful in like several iterations that he tried to do. One of them he was putting in like where Little Palace is now, used to be Kokoliko. And like just the izakaya vibe didn't really fit with the space. I never felt like. It felt like it was sort of still like a formal restaurant, but izakaya is very casual. It's like a Japanese style bar. And you have, little grilled things on skewers often.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I really didn't realize because living out in DC, now it's all coming together, Lindsay, because you're reporting. There were multiple places that had the word izakaya in it, but there was just one spot that was like my go-to that was Izakaya Seki. And they had this amazing like curry chicken noodle bowl that was
Ooh.
incredible. But now that I'm like, oh yeah, and also Madison has izakaya. Oh, it's a style of place. And I looked it up. I was like, what does the word mean? It means stay, drink, place. Like it's 3 parts, izakaya, stay, drink, place. So yeah, basically like you said, a bar.
Yeah, Madison should totally be into this. It's just basically a bar, and
Yeah.
it's you get to drink delicious things, and you get to eat all kinds of fun little nibbles. And I love any situation where I can try a lot of different things rather than
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of one thing.
Yes, yes. It makes you feel luxurious and expansive.
Yeah.
Literally.
My friend John got super excited to find out that there's a new Indian restaurant coming to Wanakee. They just opened one in Middleton. It's the Levas. And I was just looking at their menu. It looks like they are doing some fun South Indian stuff, so biryani and that kind of thing. But they're opening a new place in Wanakee, and John was like, man, Wanakee, it's a restaurant wasteland. We need more spots out here. So that's exciting for the only Wanakee in the world.
Wanakee we're sleeping on it. So if there's spots in Wanakee and you're like, I'm so offended, like we are not a sleeper, let us know what spots you're thinking about. Email us, madison@citycast.fm.
See, that's a good tip. Like give the good tips in Wanakee. We need them.
Yeah. It does seem to me that Madison is having a bit of a renaissance when it comes to Mexican cuisine. Like we have the new Taco Madre on Atwood Ave, boom, and that was full of people. El Rancho Breakfast and Tacos on East Johnson, right back in that neighborhood we started talking about in the beginning of the conversation. And soon to come is Attico Lounge, which is actually Latin American food, to be fair, over in the Moxie on East Washington Avenue. But, is that something that's happening? Is this a pattern you're noticing?
Oh my gosh, such a boom. It's such a boom. Like I feel like last year I was constantly writing about and assigning stories about new Mexican restaurants. So there's Metzli that's along the Beltline. They've been open for about a year. They are one of those places they're like, we're not doing rice and beans. That's an Americanized thing. That's not the way that we would do it in Mexico. We're going to have these more traditional dishes, but we're going to serve them in the way that we would where we're from. There is El Águila Real. It's difficult for me to say, but it means like golden eagle.
You nailed it, I think.
And it's on State Street. That took the place of Nick's. That's a new Mexican restaurant. El Sabor de Puebla expanded on the north side into that like former big Italian restaurant space. It was like Benvenuto's or something. Cafe Zaragoza is coming to Park Street. That's not open yet, but it's going to be. Los Atlantes is opening where Lane's Bakery used to be on Park, like near the Black Business Hub. It's everywhere. The expansion. Oh, El Gallo in Monona. They're going to be opening soon, too. Our photographer, Ruthie, thought it was El Gal because the O is like the chicken head, but it's El Gallo, which means chicken. I think it means rooster, actually.
Oh, okay.
But like the way that the sign is, she's like, oh, it's El Gal. It's coming to Monona. And I'm like, I think it's El Gallo. So I think it's actually really exciting.
It is so exciting. It's so flavorful. And I think just objectively, you laid out so many different spots that you could just hear that it's making a statement and a stand. And it's also because they're going into all of these formerly beloved places like Nick's and Daisy's Cupcakery, just like in these really visible spots. And I'm glad to be able to see it and feel this renaissance. It's exciting.
Yeah. El Gallo, where they're going in, used to be Edo, Japanese.
Yeah, Edo.
Down in Monona. And, obviously El Sabor de Puebla going into the Benvenuto spot. So some of these are pretty big, right? And so it feels ambitious and exciting to me. And I do feel like you can kind of take a look ahead of time too and see like, oh, this place has this particular dish, like, or this kind of mole that I really want to try. And you can make a little like pilgrimage out of it and go to a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, yeah. And if I'm being honest, like I think 60% of my diet is Mexican food. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's like real good news for me for sure. And we mentioned at least one of these, but in addition to new restaurants, Madison is getting new coffee shops and cafes. Maybe a couple of them we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But any others?
So I am podcasting with you today from Minnesota, the home of caribou. Madison just got a caribou. I think we'd had one before. We just have one. It's over by the UW hospital over on the far east side. So there's a new caribou. If you're a caribou person and you love caribou, we have one now.
And we're not talking about Caribou Tavern. We're talking about coffee shop caribou.
Coffee shop. Yeah, caribou.
Yeah.
You can order on an app, which is nice, again, for speed. And Cora has that drive-through on Monona. There is going to be a new coffee shop coming to the Black Business Hub. I just did a story about this.
Ooh.
So Say Kidao, who is a farmer over at Troy Farms, among other things.
Okay.
His wife, Melissa, is from Jamaica. They would go back to Jamaica to visit, and they just fell in love with Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, which is grown at very high elevation. So it ripens very slowly, and it's in the clouds. So it's this cool climate kind of coffee. If you think about where coffee usually comes from, it's pretty warm, right? Like Costa Rica, Ethiopia, Honduras, that kind of thing. But it is an expensive coffee for good reason. Right? It's very valuable coffee because their yields are not very high. They have low yields. And also, again, it takes a long time to ripen. So to get the coffee, it takes a long time. And you don't have very much of it. So a pound of beans will go for $100, right?
Whoa, nice.
So He is opening this place called Rasta Barista. He hopes to open it,
Rasta.
yeah, in March. And the idea is to serve these Blue Mountain Jamaican beans, this coffee. He's going to have 100% Jamaican, but then he's like aware of like, this is really expensive. So he's also going to be doing a blend, I think, of 30% Jamaican Blue Mountain and probably with Sumatra and the rest of the blend, but he has not dialed it in completely yet. That is going to be very cool because also there will be coffee subscriptions for coffee nerds.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's a passion project, which is the most fun kind of opening to write about. So,
And I feel like it's such a good place. Madison is a good community for wanting to have some fancy coffee. Like, I think it's a great market for that. So,
yeah.
shout out to Phil, our old producer, if you're listening. He's like, he was on a mission to find, does Madison have any of my quality of coffee? Because he came over here from the Bay Area. Yeah, man, he's gonna have to march Rasta Barista. That's how, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna get. I want to get in line. That sounds incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be really cool. And I think that having it in the Black Business Hub is a really cool thing too, because that place is really coming up.
Yes, yes, it's really coming up. We're rounding up Madison's newest restaurants with Cap Times food and culture editor Lindsay Christians. We've got a few more spots to highlight. Before we do, let's take a quick break. So I know you're already in the know, as we have heard, about some places that are set to open later this year that you're keeping an eye on. Can you tell us about some of those that you haven't yet mentioned?
Yes, for sure. So one that I have been tracking fairly closely, and I think a lot of other people have too, is the new location for Alimentari.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Dan Bonanno and Bonnie Arendt and Dan's brother Enrico. They opened Alimentari, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago over by RIP Burrito Drive. Dan and Bonnie also own a Pig in a Fur Coat on Willie Street. And this was their sort of deli, their homage to Dan and Enrico's family, because in Milwaukee they run a deli, or had for many, many years. So Alimentari is moving into the former Room and Candle Pizzeria over on Monroe Street. It will give them a little bit more room. They want to expand catering. They want to do a lot of what they've already been doing, but more. So you can go and grab some fresh pasta. You can go and grab a take and bake lasagna. You can get like sauces, pastas, wine, meats and cheeses,
Olives.
that kind of thing. Yes, olives for sure. So a lot of deli salads, that kind of stuff, and they're going to expand catering. So that's going to be really fun. They have, I think, already closed. I'm fairly sure they already closed Alimentari, the small one, the first
Okay.
one. And they are hoping to open the next one like fairly soon. I think they said the end of this month. So that's really exciting. So the end of January. Some other places that I'm really pumped about, Little Tibet is so lovely. Their momos are so good, and the people are super nice.
Yes.
They are opening a like cafe and grocery store on the north side, selling Indian groceries, fresh produce, Tibetan crafts, hot foods like samosas, Tibetan dumplings. It's gonna be kind of delightful, it sounds like. I think they want to open this spring, I believe. But that's going to be very cool. It's like up, I don't know if it's going into or just next to a check cashing place on the north side. It's going to be such an add to that little neighborhood.
So much. And Little Tibet is just so magical. And now it sounds like it's going into a new place that probably has better parking too, because East
Yes.
Johnston is rough on
Yeah.
in that area. It's the same area we were talking about earlier in the conversation. It's really fun. There's a lot of great places to eat and drink. And now you can get Little Tibet somewhere else, which is exciting. Oh.
Which will be very cool. And it will allow them to just to grow in the way that their business has been growing. I think that a lot of the people who work on or at Little Tibet have other jobs, which is fairly common, I think, for a lot of these smaller businesses. But it's nice to be like, no, I can expand this to the place where this is going to be my only job.
Heck yeah.
So that's really cool. There's a couple places on this current list that I have been following for a really long time. Kirill Hut, Korean Barbecue and Hot Pot over on the Far East Side is one that I've been tracking for, I think, over a year, because they were going to open like a year ago. But then there were just like delays in construction, and they had some issues because they're going into the former Lulu's 13 Pub location over by Easttown. I think it might even be in Easttown, like it's right there.
Okay.
And so they had some delays. They're opening now, they say March 2025. so fairly soon, next couple of months. But it's going to be sizzling meats, bubbling broths, and a tantalizing selection of bubble tea. So it sounds like a lot of fun.
That is a lot of fun. It's popping, sizzling.
Yeah, right? So I'm excited for them to finally, be able to bring that. There's a new restaurant that's going to be opening in Verona called Orchard. So John Biondi and Deirdre Birmingham are a married couple who founded the Cider Farm many years ago. The Cider Farm tap room on Watts Road opened like right before the pandemic. It was like one of the last places that I was going to be reviewing before everything closed down. I got one visit in and then the world shut down.
Yeah.
They recently closed that tap room, and they're going to be opening a new restaurant in Verona called Orchard. It's kind of tavern-style burgers, fried cheese curds, Friday night fish fry, but then they're also going to have a brick oven doing Neapolitan-style pizza, roasted vegetables, galettes, that kind of thing. You can follow them at Orchard Verona on Instagram and kind of see where they're at, but that's one that I'm excited for, too. They are super nice people, and their ciders and, cider liqueur, really delicious.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And I was actually just in Verona yesterday. I went to the Sugar River pizza spot.
Nice.
So now I need to go over to Orchard. They've got some lovely, lovely spots, it sounds like. So, of course, we've heard about all of these new exciting things. Again, I'm shocked and delighted that we have so many new spots to go enjoy. But of course, in part, some of that newness also goes hand in hand with some goodbyes. Places that close shop, as you said, end of the year. It's been tough. The pandemic's been tough. It's been tough times, including some of our favorites, some old favorites of ours. And we've definitely had some even just recent closure announcements. So can you tell us about the places that have closed recently?
Yeah, so we have a few on the east side. Taco Local, David Rodriguez announced the closure of that restaurant a few weeks ago. I think he just said he basically ran out of money. They had kind of an interesting business model where they had kind of a commissary kitchen that was bringing food over. And I don't know if it was still the case when they closed, but that's kind of how they were doing it when they opened. That, I think, is a great location for a restaurant. So I hope something else does go in there. Short Stack announced they're going to be closing in May. They're not closed yet. They still have those long lines outside the door.
That was a big announcement.
Yeah, that was a big announcement. And very divisive. Lots of people have strong opinions about Short Stack. I'm not a person with strong opinions about Short Stack. Love and light to them. I think it sounds like they want to do something different, like a different kind of creative project, which is something that I think often happens with restaurants.
Maybe they'll go teach.
Yeah, maybe. But the thing with closures like this is that from the outside, right, from where you and I sit, it is almost impossible to say this place closed because of X.
Right.
Right?
It's never that simple.
It's never that simple. There are investors that we don't see, silent investors who maybe have supported and are not anymore. There are family issues and challenges. There was one guy, the El Rancho breakfast and tacos guy, I think his name's Jose. He was talking about how he opened a new El Rancho out on Cottage Grove Road and it became a source of stress and tension with his family. He's like, I had to choose between the restaurant and the family, and I chose the family. So he closed that spot. But most of the time people don't say that out loud because their family life is their family life and they want to keep it private. But things like that. Barmanzo is going to be closing. I think actually already did close. Barmanzo closed in Mount Horeb. That was Nathan Mergen's restaurant. He has 107 State, so he's still there. And, Hong Kong Cafe is up for sale. That kind of thing will happen. Like Quivy's Grove went up for sale many years ago too, in part because as the owners age, they're like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Right.
It can be hard on your body. It can be hard on your finances. Like it's just.
I don't have anyone to take the reins, and I have to call it quits. So it is what it is.
Yeah, the Wedge over on Atwood is going to be closing. That was not open for very long, maybe a year. I think sometimes you'd have to do a certain amount of traffic for a place to stay afloat. Reunion out in Spring Green recently announced that it was going to be closing. They said they hope temporarily, and I hope so too. It's a lovely restaurant. It was never open very late. Like they would close at 8. And I felt like they didn't have very many hours to make money in, right? You have to, the more hours that you're open, the more you're paying staff. But those are also more hours where people can be buying your food. So that I really hope they figure out, a way to make that work. Maybe it's a summer-only restaurant. Those are not unheard of in the upper Midwest. you know?
Yeah, it's challenging. And Lindsay, I'm saying I feel for you. I feel for the people that had these closures. I feel for you having to write them. I feel for me. It's like I know a lot of these people and I've worked with them, and to see them do their ventures and it doesn't work out. I mean, we got to have some heart and we're going to miss these places. And if they're trying to get back into business, let's support them, but it is always more complicated and
it is.
Yeah.
I feel like I've read some things where people will be like, if a restaurant that you love closed, that's on you. You should have gone there more often.
I don't agree with that either.
Goodness gracious. Like, I am not made of money, but also
Right.
like you do want to support the places that you care about. I totally believe that. And I think we heard that a lot during the pandemic of like, you want the restaurants to survive, then you got to support them. We are all living in late capitalism. And all of the stresses that involves. And inflation has hit everybody. So
Yeah.
I think it may be true that, going out to restaurants becomes more of a special occasion thing than maybe it used to be. I think some business models are going to continue to change. But this kind
Not for us. We're going out.
We're going out.
I don't need a cell phone. I'm going out to eat. I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah. This kind of turnover, I think, will continue to happen. And I think we can anticipate it. And restaurants sort of do have natural lives. And we can sort of anticipate it a little bit and be sad for these changes, but also be really excited for the next new thing.
And you shared so many new things. There's a lot of great things, a lot of great new restaurants that you brought. And we just appreciate you. Thank you for being so up to date and bringing us all the goodies, like lots of things to go, March. I'm going to go get that coffee from the clouds.
You gotta. It's going to be so good.
Yeah. Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Lindsay Christians, Captime's food and culture editor. Head to our show notes for a list of links for the restaurants we mentioned in our convo. That's all for today. Here on CityCast Madison, I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with a coffee aficionado? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, eat well.